people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Okay, we'll start with this, what is fast becoming the most popular segment here on the channel, Ring IQ Hate Mail. A response to my previous video about Clarissa Shields clout-chasing Jake Paul, periodically mentioning him. User who goes by the name Luis Canallada said, clout-chasing is genius. You're talking about her. She gets on The Breakfast Club, Sway Show, and Club Shay Shay. And yet Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano still make more money than she does. That's more press than most boxers get. Not bad for a fighter who fights a bunch of who the fuck are they. And yet Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano still make more money than she does. Clarissa Shields, big mouth, talking her way into people's heads and living rent-free. Oh, spare me. Clarissa's one of many subjects we cover here on the channel, but because I often paint her in an unflattering light, you always get one or two simps trying to defend her would-be genius. But how is it an earmark of a genius that you debuted as a professional the same year as Katie Taylor, and she's ended up making far more money than you have? What defines genius? What characterizes it? If Clarissa Shields, by her own admission, says that she's the greatest woman of all times, then she should be making the greatest purses, except that she's not. There are two other fighters making far more than she is. Is that what you consider a genius? And Clarissa might have had the opportunity to make that kind of money herself if she would have paired up with MVP, except she decided not to, so that she can make $8 million spread across 2 years over 4 fights, which is what Katie and Amanda made for 1. So are you bad at math or something, Luis? Because if it's gonna take Clarissa 2 years and 4 fights to make $8 million, if she even does make $8 million, Katie and Amanda made more than that for 1 fight. Just 1. So maybe your idea of genius differs from mine, because you're justifying her obnoxious behavior behind the earmark of being a genius, causing all of these public spats with the likes of Jake Paul and many others as a means to an end. But what end is that? Making an appearance on The Breakfast Club, a Sway Show, a Club Shay Shay. You're not doing it just to do it. You're doing it to enhance your profile. And you enhance your profile so you can start making more money. A means to an end. But if in the end, you're still making less than Katie and Amanda, who aren't doing all the obnoxious shit that you're doing, you're hardly a genius. Got no corporate sponsorships, no major brand deals. You don't make per fight what they make per fight. So if what you're doing is supposed to be a means to that end, it's not working. Somebody better tell Luis. Well, Luis strikes me as a very childish individual in his response, in a hurry to agree with whatever Clarissa says and approve of her obnoxious behavior, in a hurry to disagree with me in my evaluation of it as if it's subject to opinion. But it's not. They make more than her. They both do. So whatever she's doing, it isn't working, and she still hasn't caught up with them. So if by her own standard, she is a better fighter than they are, them making more than she does makes them the geniuses. I'm sure that Luis would agree with Clarissa when she says that she's the greatest woman of all times. Kind of guy that will approve of whatever a woman says and whatever a woman does because he's a simp. And simping ain't easy. Sometimes it requires you to make an ass out of yourself, like he just did. I've never looked at knowledge in and of itself as being the earmark for genius so much as its application, because the knowledge in and of itself is only as valued as its use. What you apply it to. Now, if a guy doesn't know a lot about a lot, but he knows a lot about cars specifically, and he turns that into a multi-million-dollar business, to me, that guy's the genius. Application. Maybe you got a guy, he knows how to cook a little bit, though he's not a 4-star chef. He's no Gordon Ramsay. He's not serving you up snails in some kind of special sauce. He runs a burger joint that he subsequently turns into a franchise, a multi-million-dollar franchise, using the little bit that he knows about cooking burgers and fries. To me, that's the genius. For me and my money, it's the application of knowledge that earmarks what is genius and what is not. The knowledge in and of itself is only as valuable as its use, as its application. So what is Clarissa applying here? Me start beefs with a lot of people. Be offensive, be obnoxious in the hopes that I'm more talked about. But talked about to what end? Getting talked about online ain't enough. It has not resulted in big brand deals. It has not resulted in big corporate sponsorships. There are other fighters that are less accomplished than you are that are making more money than you. You're so fucking bright. You could have been making that money if you didn't just cut off your nose to spite your face. It's going to take you 2 years to make $8 million, where Katie and Amanda just made that in one fight. So don't call it genius just because you like her. Call it what it is. It's fucking stupid. Shit's just stupid, and you yourself have to be stupid to look at that and call it genius. In men's middleweight news, unified middleweight champion Janibek Alimkhanulai had a few choice words for his opponent Erislandy Lara ahead of what is their unification match. He said, "Lara said, I haven't fought anyone on his level yet. Well, I've got something to tell him too. He hasn't faced anyone on my level either. I'm going to score the knockout of the year." He's wrong, you know. Erislandy Lara has fought fighters on the level of a Janibek. Fighters that are above that level, like Canelo Alvarez. So he's wrong about that. But if I favor Janibek Alimkhanulai to win the fight, it's because fights don't all boil down to resumes and who fought better fighters. There are other outlying factors like time. Time is not on Erislandy Lara's side, and that's the main thing. Lara actually has the better resume, having been in there with Paul Williams and Austin Trout, Canelo Alvarez, Jarrett Hurd, Brian Castano. His resume is head and shoulders better than Janibek Alimkhanulai's. And if it were a few years ago, or Lara were a few years younger, I would actually favor him to win this fight if he still had his legs under him, but I notice that he doesn't. That Lara doesn't glide around the ring anymore the same way that he used to in the Canelo Alvarez fight, which makes for a pesky style. Was one of his best weapons in his younger years, his movement, but take that movement away and he becomes a much easier target to pin down. The whole reason that pure boxers like Erislandy Lara implement so much movement is to mitigate the exchanges, stay on the defensive, keep the opponent at the end of the jab. That's what the movement is for, to create space, create distance, and control it. But if your feet have slowed down to where you might be walking on quicksand in your early 40s, it just makes it that much easier for Janibek Alimkhanulai to catch up to you and impose his will, to force those exchanges and force you to work more than you would like. And at 42 years old, that's how Jarrett Hurd beat Erislandy Lara. And that fight was years ago, but that's how he beat him, imposing his will, staying with him, staying on top of him, forcing him into exchanges, forcing him to work more than he would like. You know, pure boxers like to fight at a slow, controlled, and relaxed pace. But he couldn't do that with Hurd, and that was years ago, many, many years later. I don't think he's going to be able to do that with Janibek. I think Janibek's going to step into his jab to bring the backhand over. I think even though Lara has been in there with better fighters than a Janibek Alimkhanulai, it's been years since he was in there with a fighter like that. A long time. And he's only really survived after all these years by staying sparsely active, barely fighting, and when he did fight, it wasn't against anybody good. Cornflake Lamana, Greg Vendetti, Michael Zarafa, to where it's been years since he encountered anybody as solid as a Janibek Alimkhanulai. So yes, he has the better resume, the better body of work, but it's not based on anything he's done recently. One of the rare instances where the resume in and of itself doesn't tell the story due to outlying factors. The night of, it will have been over a year's time from Erislandy Lara's last fight, his knockout win over Danny Garcia in September of last year. So not only are you older, significantly older than Janibek, you're also less active with ring rust to shake off, whereas for Janibek, this will be his second fight of this year. His first was in April. The knockout win over Namasenge in what was Janibek's native Kazakhstan. Granted that guy was a nobody, so knocking him out ain't a big deal, but if nothing else, it allowed Janibek to stay active, to stay sharp. There's just nothing to suggest that Lara wins this fight. By every quantifiable metric you would use to forecast the outcome of a match, whether it's the fighters' physical condition and their respective ages relative to each other, their rate of activity, how often are these fighters fighting, how sharp are they, or their respective styles. It all points in the direction of a Janibek Alimkhanalai knockout win. Lara's never been knocked out. He's got 3 losses, but nobody ever stopped him, though at this age could be ripe for the picking. If Janibek Alimkhanalai seals the deal and adds a 3rd alphabet title to his collection, will that be enough to get him on the Ring IQ pound-for-pound list? Well, Janibek Alimkhanalai's resume is still relatively thin when you think about it and what other fighters are already there on the pound-for-pound list. That a win over a 42-year-old Lara would be the biggest win of his career, but what's that say when that's the biggest win of your career so far? It revs the engine. Starts the conversation for Janibek to get on there. He's beaten 2 world champions so far. He was elevated to WBO champion, but he added the IBF to his collection by beating then unbeaten IBF champion Vincenzo Gualtieri. Lara would be the 2nd champion that he took a belt from. So that would bring the tally to 3 alphabet titles if he wins, 6 successful defenses of the WBO title in tandem with 2 unification matches, and his resume would still be thinner than Emmanuel Navarrete, the guy at the very bottom of the Ring IQ pound-for-pound list. Even with that, Janibek's resume would still be comparatively thinner than 3-weight world champion Emmanuel Navarrete ahead of his unification match early next year with Sugar Munoz. So beating Lara doesn't make him a lock to get on, but it is a nudge in that direction. In case you weren't aware, the fight is a little over a week away. It's next weekend. It snuck up on us. On the undercard of Isaac Cruz versus Levant Roach, that I actually think is one of the better cards the PBC has put together, but there's a lot of pay-per-view fatigue out there. And it's the holiday season. One of the most inopportune times to charge boxing fans extra to see a boxing match. In my opinion, it's a solid card. It's a good card. I like it. I'm gonna buy it. But I don't think all the boxing fans out there share in my opinion, as many of them would have already bought this past weekend's card, headlined by David Benavidez and Anthony Yarde, to then turn around 2 weeks later and have to pay again? And pay more, because this card ain't $60, it's $75 on Amazon Prime. Yeesh. And so it just is what it is, I guess, and it really doesn't help that next month there's an even bigger show featuring Anthony Joshua versus Jake Paul that comes to us at no additional charge on Netflix, making this a tough sell. Even though it's a good-looking card, I like it, I don't expect very many people to buy it.
I think what Canelo was thinking when he saw the fight, he started seeing David getting better and better. Maybe he went and hid behind his closet or something, to be honest with you. And he was just like terrified, because the person that Canelo does not want to face is David Benavidez, a Mexican monster. So I think that will be his shadow for the rest of his life, because everybody knows, that's the fighter that he needed to face and he didn't want to face. So.
Jose Benavidez is still at it. I've made a joke several times here on the channel over the years, and you guys know I have a habit of repeating myself, so you might have heard it, that long after David Benavidez leaves the super middleweight division, and even after he leaves light heavy, while he's at cruiser, him and his dad are still going to bring up Canelo Alvarez. He's going to be up there next door to heavyweights and bridger weights, and he'll still be talking about Canelo, who's still at 168. It's ridiculous. I've talked about that from several angles. From this one, it really highlights how the Zurdo Ramirez fight is not as big a fight as they want it to be. It's not as big a money fight. It's not bigger than a Bivol fight would have been. I don't think it would have paid as much, or a better B fight, as Turkey would have paid for those fights, whereas for this one, you're relying on the fans to buy it. This is the fight you want to use to usurp Cinco de Mayo weekend from Canelo, who's in the process of negotiating a Crawford rematch. So let's say that your fight is happening that weekend, and his fight is happening too. Well, that's not good for you. If the paying public has to choose between Canelo on Netflix that doesn't cost them anything extra, or your fight, it's not good for you. Assuming Canelo versus Crawford 2 lands on Cinco de Mayo weekend, assuming it lands on Netflix. What if it doesn't? If by some chance it doesn't land on Netflix and it's billed as a pay-per-view on the DAZN platform, the same applies. If people have to choose between buying Canelo's fight and buying David's fight, what history shows is more people are going to buy Canelo's fight because he has more fans than David. I'm not just talking about people online hyping him up either. I'm talking about people who buy tickets to be there or to watch the pay-per-view at home. Canelo has more of those fans, those kinds of people, than David.
Yeah, it's already signed May 2nd, me versus Zurdo Ramirez. And like I said, I'm not waiting for nobody. I'm not making my own lane, and I'm achieving my greatness.
And how does the fight with Zurdo play at cruiserweight?
I'll beat Zurdo, you know what I mean? It's not going to be easy. I need to work extremely hard. And none of these fights are going to be easy. From now on and for the next 10 years, there's not going to be no easy fights, but I'm working harder and harder. I put together a good, I don't know what the word is, but I have a good training for myself. I have a good regimen for myself. So I'm just getting better. I'm learning more workouts, and I'm stronger and stronger every single day.
Undisputed at cruiser, or will you come back down to light heavy after?
You know, I want to come down after the after cruiser, and but whatever, we'll see what opportunities.
You see? He's already non-committal to what they said, that after the fight with Zurdo, win or lose, he would return to light heavy. David didn't want to commit to that when he was asked about it, because he knows once he goes up to cruiser, he stays at cruiser. There ain't no going back. He said the fight is already made. It's already done, and he announced it right after the Yard fight. Why is that important? It's important because earlier this month, he told the media that he wanted to stay in the light heavyweight division for the next 5 years. That's what he told them. All the while, he was charting a course to cruiserweight for his very next fight, making his light heavyweight campaign far less than 5 years, more like year and a half, maybe 2. Making all that stuff he said about light heavyweight a bunch of bullshit, and all the fights that he entertained, like a Callum Smith fight, a Bivol fight, a Better Beef fight. There are literally featurettes in the buildup of the Yard fight, where he's saying he's going to go after these guys after the Yard fight, but all the while, he knew it was bullshit because he was negotiating the Zurdo fight. If, as he says, the fight is already made, and already done, and already set, that means while you were getting ready for Yard, you were making that fight. Let's make it even more simple. The whole time you were talking about all those guys at light heavy, you knew you weren't going to fight any of them. You were lying. And it's plain as day that he was lying, but his fans still choose to eat it up. I think they've attached their egos to this fighter to where now they just don't want to be wrong. They don't want to be wrong about him. Even though they already are. And I don't hate the Zurdo Ramirez fight. Stylistically, it makes for a decent fight, but the cruiserweight division is very much a top-heavy division, to where if you fight Zurdo and you beat him, but you don't move back down, who else can you fight at cruiserweight that makes for a sellable pay-per-view? We don't even know if this one is sellable. Now, if what David's team were thinking was, we're going to get the drop on those light heavyweights by moving up to cruiser before them, so by the time they move up, we've acclimated. And this weight favors us more than it favors them. The problem with that strategy, if that's what they were thinking, is it relies on Bivol to move up and Better Beef to move up. We don't even know if they're going to do that. Did you see how much weight Dimitri lost after the back surgery? He has to have lost about 20 to 30 pounds. He's always been a very lean light heavyweight. I don't know that he goes to cruiser. And at 38 years old, I don't know that Artur does either. He might turn out to be a career light heavyweight. So it's a flawed plan if that's what they planned. And there's just not enough to go around at cruiser for David. Sell a bunch of pay-per-views. It's a top-heavy division.